Barakatah Yahweh, Barakatah Yahweh Shah, Barakatah Yahweh, Barakatah Yahweh Shah. All praises, glory, and honor goes to Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shah, Bahashem, Kadash. Yahweh being the name of the Heavenly Father. Yahweh Shah being the name of his only begotten Son, who they ignorantly call Jesus Christ. Now we're gonna check out this video that pretty much breaks down and focuses on Joel chapter 3. And I want to focus specifically on Joel chapter 3 verse 2, but the whole chapter 3 is the focus. So I'm gonna let the video play.
Made to Israel and referred to them as a kind of spiritual revival replacing Israel. I'm thinking there'll be a great spiritual revival that would take place that ignores Israel. What is the danger in this thinking, what the danger of actually holding these beliefs that are not biblical and then place those promises that are specifically made to Israel and then apply them to the church at large?
Well, your hopes and expectations are going to be dashed in no small part. You know, where you have prophecies that talk about the regathering of the Jewish people from the four corners of the earth. You have, the breaches of the walls being built up, planted back in the land, and all these different sorts of things. They clearly relate very literally to the Jewish people, to the re-establishment of the nation, as we're seeing in these days. I mean, it's an amazing privilege to be born and living in these days. But if your theology is such that you cannot entertain the idea that these are something that physically still is applied to Israel, then you have no choice but to insert some allegorical replacement in there. You make it a picture, and the only alternative in the minds of most people today is that it must refer to Christians and it must refer to the church. And so what you'll take is something that actually, as God spoke it through the prophets, was intended to be taken quite literally, and it just gets misapplied to the church. So there are probably thousands of people in churches around that are expecting some massive worldwide revival, and the scriptures, the prophecies they're standing on, actually are referring to the restoration of Israel, and both aren't going to come true. They basically misunderstood the prophecies that they're are keeping them motivated and keeping them moving forward.
I suppose what's really shameful in the days in which we're living in, and we are living in deep biblical ignorance, is that so many so-called progressive evangelical churches throughout the Western world are no longer preaching the Old Testament.
Yeah.
It's just purely the New Testament. So isn't there a great danger that you can't understand the New Testament unless you understand the Old Testament? Because many in the charismatic movement look at some of the...
So that's showing a clear situation. Now when you go into the commentary of these Christians, they tell you what Joel chapter 3 is all about. And look at their breakdown. This is the commentary. Now let me go into just him explaining the verse here in it's C. It says, I will also gather all nations and bring them down to the valley of Jehoshaphat. He says Joel here describes the final gathering of the nations in rebellion against God at the battle of Armageddon. You see? So he's saying this is talking about Revelations, the coming of the Messiah, the coming judgment, the final judgment. It says there is no place in Israel known as the valley of Jehoshaphat, but the name Jehoshaphat means the Lord judges. It describes God's place of judgment. Okay. He says Let's see. It was another one I wanted to get. Now these people got it right, but look what they try to do. It says, "I will enter into judgment with them there on account of my people." God's complaint against the nations is that they have mistreated his people. Primarily, this has in view the way the nations treat Israel, but also here you go, they Christian commentary, but also extends to how the nations treat the church. This is what these church members and these pastors is pushing. The Jehovah Wiccan is pushing the same thing. They try to use the Old Testament as an example. They try to use the Old Testament as an example of some church in parallel. This is the parallel of a church. When God did not lie, He didn't give you He didn't give the prophets a parallel to some church. See, when He spoke to them nothing but truth. And let's get that real quick, because these people will tell you that He's trying to give you some parallel example of what He gonna do to some freaking religious church, what they call them things, a coalition of heathens that done believe the same thing in some church or religion. Now I wanted to get 2nd Ezra 15. That's what it was. 2nd Ezra 15. He says, this is what he telling to the prophets now. He says, "Behold, speak thou in the ears of my people the words of prophecy, which I will put in your mouth, says the Lord, and cause them to be written in paper, for they are faithful and true." No, they just an example. They just an example so you can understand what the church is going to be going through. It's not going. The Israelites are not going to be going through this thing. This is one for the Israelites. This was all about a church, because God didn't choose the Israelites. He chose everybody. See, He sent His Son down to choose everybody and get rid of that church, that Israelite thing. He don't deal with the Israelites no more. See, they just saying God is a liar. And people sit up there and listen to him. You know what? God is a liar. Because He created everybody. He got to get His thing to everybody. He can't just give it to the Israelites. He just can't look after the Israelites. He can't worry about what the nations did to the Israelites. And this is what they can't help but to admit. I want to go back to this one here. With the two I's above the D. It says, "This is a judgment of all nations." Joel was writing at a time when a terrible plague of locusts brought the judgment of God upon the people of God. At a time like that, it is easy to think, God, you are dealing harshly with us. But what about the ungodly nations? We may be bad, but they are worse. Don't you care about them? God used Joel to assure His people that the nation will be dealt with. So they got to be dealt with, man. They're not going to be able to join some church and they ain't going to get no punishment for what they doing. Now it goes into, I want to get that Joel 3 and 6, 3 and 8, I think, when they talked about He gonna throw them into slavery for what they did to His people, throwing His people into slavery. He gonna throw them into slavery. Now look at what these jokers said. They said, "Will you retaliate against me, God of Salaki?" It says, God Salaki. God virtually challenges Salakia. It said God challenges the nations to come against him and his people. He vowed to return your retaliation upon your own head to those who come against him and his people. So this is it's on. You can't get around it. But look at what they did when he said he's gonna throw them behind into slavery. This is B. It says, "I will sell your sons and your daughters into the hand of the people of Judah." The nations treated God's people with contempt and had no sense of their worth. Therefore, God will repay them with the contempt they put upon His people, vowing to return your retaliation upon your own head. So they goes into the Roman time. They ain't even thinking about what's happening in these last days when His people done went when certified chattel slavery is going on. They ain't even put that into the equation, but they trying to speak it away by talking about some stuff that had nothing to do with the fulfillment of somebody getting put in slavery. It was a easy comparison. My people, you put in slavery, I'm gonna throw your behind the slavery. Look at what they saying. They trying to say this is the fulfillment of that prophecy. Nero lost 30,000 subjects to a pestilence. He wasn't talking about killing nobody. He said, I'm gonna sell your sons and your daughters into the hand of my people Judah. So where is this selling? Trade, what do you say? Domitian was butchered by his own soldiers. He getting killed. He didn't go into slavery. Trajan died of a disease. He didn't go into slavery. Severus died in Britain. He didn't go into slavery. Maximus cut in pieces together with his own son. He didn't go into slavery. Where is this slavery? See, all these people, they poisoned themselves, and soldiers killed them, hung itself. Where is the slavery? Then they go into a whole nother subject. So you just say God telling a lie. This is the stuff that they doing. After saying all of that, he trying to prove to the Israelites that he gonna punish the people, but he never punished them. Punishing a leader of a nation is not nothing, man. Everybody got to get it. It's like all the Israelites is getting it. Everybody got to get it. Now let me go into that because it goes into the tell you the nation that was gonna get the punishment. It's Joel 3:6. It identifies the nation that's doing all of the punishing, pretty much mistreating God's people. It said, the children also of Judah and the children of Jerusalem have ye sold unto the Grecians. When you go into the Grecians, these were so-called white men, a clear situation. And they weren't throwing their own peoples into slavery. See, it was two different people. It was a whole nother set of people that they were throwing into slavery. They weren't throwing just one of their tribes that they didn't, and they don't ever use no tribe anyway. The tribe of Judah. People ain't dealing with no tribes, man. None of them Greeks. You ain't gonna go into Greek history and find some tribe. Now, when you go into 19, it tell you who them Greeks was. It says, Egypt shall be a desolation, and Edom shall be a desolate wilderness for the violence against the children of Judah. So Edom was the one that was selling them. You see, and then when you go into Amos, it tells you straight up. In 6, it says that the captivity was delivered up to Edom. Edom had the Israelites and selling them. 9, it says Tyrese. Tyrese is the Hamite African. The Hamite Africans was going to sell the Israelites to Edom. You see, and that's what Joel 3 and 4 was identifying. Gaza and Tyrus, the Hamites and the Arab. They was going to be selling the Israelites to the so-called white man who is the Grecian. And the Lord is going to pay them back. See, that's Armageddon. It's not going to be about some freaking church, man. It's going to be about these auction blocks that was going on in America. And still is going on them selling men for basketball, football, baseball, soccer. It said they have cast lots for my people. See, they having all kind of drafts, NBA draft, the NFL draft. See, they have cast lots for my people. They have given a boy for a harlot. They still making you do all these homosexual rituals to get into their leagues and to their entertainment world where you can get some money. And there was a bunch of pedophiles back then doing the chattel slavery where you was owned by individuals out, but now they owned by the state or some corporation that they working for. It says, and sold a girl for wine that they might drink. See, this is what they getting the payback from. And the church ain't got nothing to do with none of this. But I done demonstrated multiple ways. You go into the commentary, all these pastors and preachers. Let me see if I can get the. Yeah, look at them. All of these people running their mouth. David Guzik and this Jameson and Brown, John MacArthur, Chuck Smith. All these Edomites is running their mouth, talking about some Matthew Henry, talking about some that this is not talking about the Israelites. Now this Alexander McLaren, he had to bring up Psalms 83. See, when the average Christian is bringing up Psalms 83, because he know that it's been a major battle between the Israelites and the heathen. And the Lord been telling the Israelites they gonna have to pay. They gonna have to pay. I'm gonna pay them back. See, they been coming against y'all. See, and why don't you have in the United Nations some Negroes from the projects where they see that, where the Native Americans see that, where the Hispanics see that? You're not gonna find it. You find the Arabs got a seat, the Hamites got a seat, the East Indians got a seat, the Chinese, the Moabites, all these people got a seat. Let's see what he say real quick. I want the commentary. It looked like they didn't give it to me. Or did I hit the wrong button? Cause he looked like he just. Okay, this might be the commentary. This psalm is a cry for help against a world in arms, the failure of all attempts to point to a period when all the allies have represented as confederate against Israel, well, or could have been united, could have been united in assailing it, inclines one to suppose that the enumeration of enemies is not history, but poetic idealization. The psalm would then be not the memorial of a fact, but the expression of a standing relationship between Israel and the outlining heathendom. You see, the non-Israelites. The singer masses together ancient and modern foes of diverse nationalities and mutual autonomous I can't even say the word. and pictures them as burying their enmities and bringing their separation and all what did it say? Eminent by one failed hatred to the dove of God, which sits innocent and helpless in the midst of them. So he's pretty much saying, man, this just a song. It's not literal. You see, because he know that this is how you connect the dot. Psalms 83. And then he goes into the Valley of Jehoshaphat, what I always go into, where there was a bunch of nations coming against the Israelites under Jehoshaphat. And then like he goes into the Maccabean time. And he bring up First Maccabees chapter 5 when all the nations came against the Israelites and Edom was the leader. The mention of Amalek during the Maccabees time. But yeah, I'm gonna leave it there. I just want to bring out that commentary against the Joel chapter 3 and showing how these people hoping on a dream. When that's talking about the blacks, Hispanics, and Native Americans, descendants of slaves, that they scattered on slave ships and was selling them. The Hamites and the Arabs were selling them to the so-called white man, and the so-called the small hats and the Jewish man Amalek was the one that was planning and paying for the ships and even buying the slaves in the slave market. They were the main people. You got that senator or lawyer that wound up being a senator or governor or whatever. He was an Ish man that had 140 slaves, man. They had a major role, and they had the money to go to them slave auctions and buy the people, because they already knew they had stole their identity. They had converted to their whole culture, and now they trying to enslave the people and keep them blind. But yeah, I just want to bring that out. I'm going to leave it there. All praise to Yahweh, Ba'ashem Yahweh Shah, Ba'ashem Kakadash. Double honor to the elders pushing the truth. Peace to the elect worldwide. Our kingdom is at hand. Shalom.